History is often written by the victors, painting figures in broad, simple strokes, good or evil, hero or villain. But sometimes, when we look closer, we find stories far more complex, filled with nuance, heartbreak, and quiet strength. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of history's most misunderstood monarchs, a queen often remembered for tragedy, but who deserves to be seen for her profound sympathy and resilience. This is the story of the Sympathetic Queen. Our story begins not with a crown, but with a girl born into a world of immense privilege and even greater pressure. From her earliest days, she was taught that her life was not her own. It belonged to her country, to her future husband, to her destiny. While other children played freely, she was groomed for a role she never asked for, her days filled with lessons in etiquette, politics, and languages. Imagine the weight of that responsibility on young shoulders, the constant scrutiny, the knowledge that your every move is being watched and judged. It's easy to see the gilded cage, but we often forget the lonely bird inside. As she blossomed into a young woman, a marriage was arranged. It wasn't a love match, not in the way we think of it today. It was a political alliance, a strategic move on the grand chessboard of European power. She was sent to a foreign land, a stranger in a strange court, with a language she was still learning and customs that were alien to her. Her new husband was often distant, preoccupied with the affairs of state or his own personal interests. The vibrant, lively court she had been promised felt cold and isolating. The very people who were supposed to be her new family saw her as an outsider, a pawn in a political game. In these moments of profound loneliness, her true character began to shine. Instead of retreating into bitterness or resentment, she turned her attention outward. She started to notice the people who were usually invisible, the servants who scurried through the palace halls, the gardeners who tended the magnificent grounds, the common folk who lived just beyond the castle walls. She would speak to them not as a queen to her subjects, but as one person to another. She asked about their families, their struggles, their small joys. For the first time, many of these people felt seen by someone in power. Her sympathy wasn't just a passive feeling, it was an active force. She learned of a village that had suffered a poor harvest and was facing a winter of starvation. The royal court was planning a series of extravagant feasts and balls. While others saw this as normal, she saw the jarring contrast. Secretly, she began to divert funds from her own personal allowance. She organized shipments of grain and warm clothing, not with a grand announcement, but quietly, ensuring the aid reached those who needed it most. When her actions were discovered, some in the court scoffed. They called her naive, sentimental, and unfit for the harsh realities of rule. But to the people she helped, she was an angel. Her compassion extended beyond just material aid. She took a keen interest in the arts and sciences, not just as a patron, but as a genuine enthusiast. She sponsored young artists who were struggling to make a name for themselves, providing them with studios and commissions. She invited thinkers and philosophers to the court, engaging in lively debates about new ideas that challenged the old ways of thinking. She believed that a society's strength lay not just in its armies or its treasury, but in its culture, its creativity, and its intellectual curiosity. She was building a different kind of kingdom, one founded on empathy and enlightenment. One of the most touching stories about her involves a young stable boy who had been badly injured after being kicked by a horse. In those days, an injury like that for a commoner was often a death sentence or a life of begging. The royal physicians wouldn't bother with him. When the queen heard of his plight, she personally went to the stables. The court was scandalized. A queen in the dirt and straw of a stable, unheard of. She knelt by the boy's side, cleaned his wound with her own hands, and ordered her personal physician to attend to him until he was fully recovered. She even ensured he was given a less physically demanding job within the palace once he was well. This single act of kindness echoed throughout the kingdom. It showed that she saw the humanity in everyone, regardless of their station. But history, as we know, is rarely kind. Political storms were gathering on the horizon. Factions within the court grew more aggressive, and her foreign birth was used as a weapon against her. They whispered that she was a spy, that her loyalties were divided, that her acts of charity were just a ploy to win over the common people and usurp power. The sympathy she showed to others was twisted and portrayed as a weakness. The more she tried to do good, the more her enemies used it to paint her as a threat. The king, her husband, was often swayed by these powerful and manipulative voices. He loved her in his own way, but he was a man caught between his duty and the viper's nest of his own court. There were times he stood by her, and times he tragically failed too. She found herself increasingly isolated, her friends at court dwindling as the political climate became more treacherous. Yet, even in the face of this growing hostility, she refused to become the cold, calculating monarch her critics wanted her to be. She held on to her empathy, even when it made her vulnerable. The final act of her story is the one most people remember, a whirlwind of revolution and chaos that swept away the old world. In the darkest of times, when she was imprisoned and facing an uncertain fate, her character remained steadfast. Accounts from her guards, men who were her sworn enemies, tell of a woman of incredible dignity and grace. She treated them with a respect they did not expect, sharing what little food she had and inquiring after their families. She never lost her compassion, even for her captors. She faced her, and not with fear or anger, but with a quiet resolve that baffled those who had condemned her. So why is she so often misremembered? Perhaps it's because her story is inconvenient. It is easier to have clear-cut villains than to grapple with the complexities of a person who did and fit the mold. Her sympathy was seen as a flaw in a world that valued power and ruthlessness above all else. But today, looking back, we can see it for what it truly was, her greatest strength. It was the source of her resilience, her grace, and her enduring humanity. In a world that often feels divided and lacking in empathy, her story is a powerful reminder of the impact of kindness. It shows us that true strength isn't about how high you can build your walls, but how wide you can open your heart. The sympathetic queen may have lost her crown and her life, but she left behind a legacy that is more important than any throne, a testament to the enduring power of compassion in the face of cruelty. Her story challenges us to look beyond the headlines and the history books, to find the humanity in the figures of the past, and most importantly, to find it within ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this story as moving as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. Let me know in the comments which historical figure you think is the most misunderstood. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.